Hi everybody, you're listening to Comics and History, episode number 124, part 3, Spotlight on the Spectre during the Ostrander-Mandrake run. And welcome to the show. I am your host, Brian J. Rygate, and class is back from recess. At the end of part 2, I began speaking about the Spectre's destruction of the European nation of Vltava. Spectre at this time was in a very vengeful state. Jim Corrigan had opened up to Father Richard Kramer that he was not only growing wary of his mission, but he was beginning to question the nature of his mission. And at the end of part 2, I spoke about how the Spectre's decision to raise the entire country of Vltava, to destroy everyone and everything save for the two opposing leaders, plunged the United Nations into chaos as a number of countries were questioning each other's modus. Given that the Spectre was believed to be an entity that was headquartered somewhere in the United States, there was certainly pressure on the United States to get involved and to deal with the Spectre. And amongst all of the chaos, Eclipso returned. And I have to admit, folks, when I was first introduced to Eclipso in my youth, I thought the character looked rather dumb. I really didn't get his look and his motivations. And so for any readers who shared my early views of Eclipso, Ostrander-Mandrake did an excellent job of portraying Eclipso in a new light here in this story. Here it was explained that Eclipso was to the Spectre what the Manhunters were to the Green Lantern Corps, a failed first attempt. And it was explained here in this story that before the Spectre, God created Eclipso to act as God's wrath. And there were certain scenes shown depicting Eclipso carrying out certain acts of vengeance as told in biblical stories. But over time, Eclipso became highly egotistical and became more than just the wrath of God. Eclipso came to view itself or himself as something of a god. And so God basically had to recall Eclipso and imprison him in the Black Diamond and banish him. And then, of course, as 0 Hour approached and passed, Mr. Ostrander-Mandrake would have much more to say on the creation of the Spectre. But here now in this story, Eclipso has returned. And Eclipso is out to do more than just create chaos on Earth. Eclipso wants to consume the power of the Spectre. And so there's an early confrontation between Eclipso and the Spectre, in which Eclipso refers to Spectre as his cousin. And in due course, Eclipso is actually able to consume the Spectre along with Jim Corrigan. And so that leads to two separate teams trying to free the Spectre from Eclipso. The first team is led by Phantom Stranger, and he assembles a group of magic users, which includes Zatanna, Dr. Fate, who at that time was Inza Nelson, as well as the demon Etrigan. And they battle Eclipso on the moon. Back on Earth, though, Madame Xanadu goes to the aid of the magic user / diplomat Ramban, as well as Father Kramer, in an attempt to get to the root of the Spectre's problems, which aren't just being consumed by Eclipso. Rather, they recognize that the Spectre's true difficulty lies within the spiritual heart of Jim Corrigan, given how he's been questioning his mission. And certainly it can be said that he's lost control of the Spectre. Certainly the destruction of Flatava is the most extreme act that the Spectre has performed in his history with Jim Corrigan as the host. So Madame Xanadu and Ramban come up with an interesting plan. They plan to summon the spirit of Jim Corrigan. But in so doing, that means that they are, once again, separating Corrigan from the Spectre. And they do this. They manage to bring Corrigan's soul to Earth and place it in a sort of stasis field, which Phantom Stranger is not all pleased with, because now this means that the Spectre is without a host and is even more susceptible to being consumed entirely by Eclipso. But it turns out that Xanadu, Ramban, and Father Kramer are on the right track. Now, when they first get Jim Corrigan in stasis, Corrigan is at an even lower point. He's talking about how humanity has become more and more savage. There's no justice. He just wants it all to end. And Father Kramer reaches out to Corrigan and says, okay, Jim, it sounds to me like you're judging humanity as a whole. You see humanity as this small lump of coldness, and yet in humanity I see individual points of light. And Madame Xanadu says, like Amy Baderman. To which Corrigan asks, well, what about Amy? What did she do that was so bad? What was her sin? And yet she had to die. And so Corrigan's basically stuck in this loop. And Father Kramer suggests that perhaps Corrigan is angry at God. A neat little seed that's planted here in the second story arc, and it's certainly something that's going to come up in the final arc of this run. Xanadu and Ramban want to just keep Corrigan in stasis and hope that he'll get out of this endless loop that he's in. But Kramer says no. In order to have trust, you must make trust. You must create trust. And so he reaches his hand through the stasis field, holds out his hand to Corrigan, and assures him that they will walk this path together. Father Kramer, from here on out, is going to be Jim Corrigan's spiritual advisor. But here, Kramer is making it clear with his words, with his physical touch, that he's there for Jim, and that he can, I guess, be an anchor of sorts for Corrigan. And he'll certainly listen to Corrigan whenever he needs to talk. And it works. Jim gets out of that endless circle, and he realizes that he must once again take upon the power of the Spectre, which he does. And Corrigan transports himself, along with Xanadu, Ramban, and Father Kramer, or sorry, not Father Kramer, to the moon. They confront Eclipso, and in the end, Corrigan is able to separate the Spectre from Eclipso, bond with the Spectre once more, and it appears at this point that the Spectre destroys Eclipso completely. He first imprisons Eclipso into a black diamond, but then he puts the black diamond into a hunk of dirt and then crushes that ball of dirt, seemingly destroying Eclipso. But in years' time, of course, we'll see that that is not the case. So having done this, the Spectre and company are transported to the gates of heaven, where they see the Archangel Michael. And certainly some readers would be well justified in arguing that the voice has been Michael all of this time. Certainly look at the fancy type font, the typescript that Todd Klein created for the Archangel Michael. It looks very much like type font that would be used for the voice. And, of course, the Archangel Michael is one of a number of aspects of God, but you could say in this run that Michael is the voice of God. But more on that in a later part of this episode. Here, Michael is pleased to see the Spectre. Michael, of course, has witnessed all that has gone on, and the Spectre is very repentant at this point. He realizes that he became full of hubris. He fell prey to the emotions of a man, i.e. Corrigan, and he acted completely out of line. He realizes now that Amy Baderman was trying to teach him that there has to be mercy. Without mercy, there is no justice. There's only vengeance. And what is more, the Spectre and Corrigan now realize that the Spectre's mission is not only to confront evil and to punish it. The mission is also to comprehend evil so that Jim Corrigan can better understand the darkness that exists within himself. And at that point, Michael is very pleased and says to Corrigan / Spectre, "Yes, and now, Jim Corrigan, your true mission can begin." To which Satana says, "Really? It took him 50 years to figure out his true mission?" But Michael responds that for mortals, 50 years is a considerably long period of time. But for aspects of God, such as Michael and the Spectre, 50 years is really but a trifle. And what's important is that Corrigan now recognizes what his true mission is as the Spectre. And so everyone gets returned to Earth. And in the end, Jim Corrigan will be the first of a number of times during this run, goes to Father Kramer at the church and asks Kramer for his ear so that they can talk. And indeed, there are going to be a number of times where Corrigan also visits Father Kramer at his home. Now, the Spectre may have been given a pass by Michael for his actions in Vltava, but there's still considerable international outrage and concern over the Spectre's actions. And so to that end, the President of the United States, who at this time was Bill Clinton, both in our world and in the DCU, tasked himself with finding a way to stop the Spectre. And so we see President Clinton call in an old friend and mentor, one of his old university professors, Nicodemus Hazard. And I don't think that Hazard is a metahuman, but he has this ability to hypnotize himself into a state where he can access this incredible library, this vast repository of knowledge, complete with the librarian at his beck and call. And so Hazard is looking for something that can stop the Spectre. And this leads Hazard on a quest for the Spear of Destiny. The Spear of Destiny, of course, being the fabled spear that was used to puncture Christ when he was on the cross. And because the tip of the spear had some of Christ's blood spilled upon it, the spear was granted